Good morning to every one of you. So today we are going to read Isaiah chapter 39 by Pastor Joshua. Okay, Isaiah chapter 39. So in chapter 38, we mentioned that we need to seek God for the hearts of total trust in Him, because our trust in God is not complete somehow. Yes, it's true that King Hezekiah put his trust in God somehow, especially when he was in crisis. When he was in crisis, and he know that he was going to die, and when God told him that you were dying, so it's better for you to write up your will. And then he just turned his face to the wall, and then cried before the Lord. And then what did he say to God at that time? And then he said to God, "Remember, O Lord, how I have walked before you faithfully and with wholehearted devotion, and have done what is good in your eyes. So, Lord, please remember me. And you know that my heart for you is complete. And you know that what I have been doing for you is faithful and never change. I always put my trust in you. I'm after you just like King David. So I have done what is good in your eyes. I'm not doing the things what is good in my eyes, but in your eyes." So that's what he said to God. So saying, "Remember me, Lord. Look at me, Lord." And this is his prayer. And then later on, when Prophet Isaiah told him that you are going to be healed, and then he prayed to God again. But you can tell from his prayer that the prayer itself was not filled with praises to God, but it was filled with the vibe of Jacob. So it's saying that, "Oh, if you save me, then I will be doing this. If you save me, I will be doing this." So, strictly speaking, it is not a thanksgiving prayer to the Lord. And let's see what he said in the prayer. In verse 19 of chapter 38, verse 19, the living, they praise you. So the living, they praise you as I'm doing today. Fathers tell their children about your faithfulness, so that your children will know about your faithfulness. So the living will praise you. So I will praise you. I will praise you. I will make people know about your faithfulness. So that is to know about your glory. That people will know that you are reliable. Verse 20. The Lord will save me, and we will sing with stringed instruments all the days of our lives in the temple of the Lord. So you save me, Lord. Then I will sing with the stringed instruments all the days of our lives in the temple of the Lord. And I will give all the glory to you. I will let people know that you are the one to save me. So this is his vow to the Lord. So before he died, that he held tight onto God. So I will say that this is a kind of a fleshly, very fleshly trust in the Lord. If you are an evangelist, or if you are a cell leader, and you know some people who are going to die, who are going to die, what will be their responses? Their responses might be like this: "Oh God, please save me. So if you save me, then I surrender my lives to you and to serve you for the rest of my lives." I've seen this kind of responses many times. Yes, it's true. Some people did respond to God by serving Him, but some people didn't. So after the crisis, and then just simply for God's God. And again, when they were in the crisis again, or when they were dying again, and they said the same vow to the Lord. So, will God really save him again? Not sure. And this is King Hezekiah. It's true that King Hezekiah did put his trust in the Lord, but not completely. Uh, Through Hezekiah, and God enabled all the Assyrian armies to retreat. And he even did a miracle, and that he allows the sons to go backward 10 steps. So it is really a big wonder. Well, you were asking a sign of the son to go backward the 10 steps. It was really a great miracle. It was so difficult. It really showed that God loves you so much that He was willing to perform this miracle. Well, speaking of here, I would like to mention about my playing basketball experience yesterday. You know, yesterday it was raining heavily, right, for the whole day. And you know that everyone knows that from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock on Thursday is my basketball playing time. Well, you know, even though I know that it's been raining all the day, I still brought along my gears for playing the basketball. So after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so when I look at the weathers, I know that for sure it will be raining. It will still be raining. And then when I look at my mobile phone, I got a message from our coach and saying that the land of the basketball was dry now. We are right now preparing everything for the basketball match, so you can come down. So right away, I just went down to play the basketball till 6 p.m. Well, after the game, and it rains again. Well, it happens many times to me. So I can really tell that God can turn the situation around anytime, given that we put all our faith and trust in Him. And even though, I come to the moment that I know that it is quite impossible because all whole day has been raining, right? But could still the miracle. So it really tells me that I have to put my full trust in the Lord all the times. And then what King Hezekiah had been experiencing was even much greater than mine. So what should we do and what should he do? So after the crisis, and God saved him already. And God saved him physically, and God also saved his countries from being defeated. And God overcome the Assyrians armies. God conquered the Assyrian armies. It's because all nations were under the hands of God. So up to here, I would like all to understand. So we have to understand this passage was spoken by Isaiah during the reign of Hezekiah and King Ahaz. That was 700 years before Christ. But the book was only finished in 400 years after Christ. That was when they were in captivity. or when they were in exile, and then when they returned to Jerusalem. So that was after all these things had happened, that the Israelites just collected all the chapters to form this book of 66 chapters of book of Isaiah. And this is the process of how the book was collected. So that's why for the people at that time, especially the people 400 years after Christ, they've been asking the questions. God, God could save Judah from Assyrian army. Then how come today, God, you could not save us from Babylon? How come all the Israelites will be exiled in Babylon? So after the time of Babylon, and then it comes the time of Persian, and then how come? And then would God save us from Persian Empire? How come we would be under the reign of Babylon and as well as Persian's empire? How come God didn't save us from all these nations? God could, but how come God didn't do it? So from chapter 36 to 39, that is the passage for the Israelites to understand that actually God could do it because God was trustworthy. But how come finally Israelites were still in exile, were still in captivity by Babylon, by Persian? That was the reason. That was the reason of God. Even though they were in exile, but does it mean that we could not trust our God? No, definitely not. So the one that we should put our trust in is not a person. It's not King Hezekiah. It's not King David. Because King David also got his own witnesses. Actually, King Hezekiah was like the second King David. But I would say that this second King David was even much worse than the first King David. He was King Hezekiah was saying that his heart was complete, but was he fully complete for the Lord? So in these few chapters, these few chapters serve a very important warnings to the people at that time. It serves a big warnings to us today as well. Shall we take a look at this passage? The topic of this chapter is beware of incomplete trust in the Lord. Okay, and then a dash. The temptation of Babylon. The temptation of Babylon. Verse 1. At that time, Merodach Baladan, son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent Hezekiah lectures and a gift because he had heard of his illness and recovery. Hezekiah received the envoys gladly and showed them what was in his storehouses, the silver, the gold, the spices, the fine oil, his entire armory, and everything found among his treasures. There was nothing in his palace or in all his kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. Then Isaiah the prophet went to King Hezekiah and asked, "What did those men say, and where did they come from?" "From a distant land," Hezekiah replied. "They came to me from Babylon." The prophet asked, "What did they see in your palace?" "They saw everything in my palace," Hezekiah said. "There's nothing among my treasures that I did not show them." So these four verses are very important. Not only did they show us a story, but also the significance of this story. So this morning, when you read these few verses in the morning devotion, you must have a kind of understanding. Don't show everything in your home to people. So, in the past, when I read this passage, then I will realize that, well, when the people came to the church to visit our church, it is quite impossible not to show the things to the people. But this passage really reminded me that we should not show off everything that we have to the people. So, should we show them all these things of our church or not? You know that a lot of churches would like to visit our church to take a look at our church. Then what should we do? So to show them or not to show them, well, it becomes a question. If I don't show them the church, so it seems that we are very selfish. But if we show them everything, it seems that we are very arrogant. So for me, I will think that King of Babylon knew that Hezekiah had recovered. He also knew that Assyrian army was defeated. So that's why he sends the letters and the gift to King Hezekiah. He also sends his envoys to King Hezekiah. But here we are told that Hezekiah received the envoys gladly. So it means that he was very happy to see all these ambassadors. So what was he happy about? Why was he so happy to see all these envoys? What was his attitude to see all these envoys and ambassadors? What did he want to achieve? And also we need to know that these envoys were from Babylon. And also, the first questions that Isaiah asked was, what did those men say and where did they come from? What did they say? Where did they come from? So from these questions, it tells us that where they come from is very important. So King Hezekiah said that they came to me from Babylon, very far away, from a distant land. So everybody should narrow our focus here. What kind of place was it for Babylon? Actually, Babylon was the land of Shinar. Is today Iraq. And also, Babylon has come up in the Bible many times. So in Genesis, it talks about Shinar. It talks about the Tower of Babel. These two refers to the same place. Actually, there were three characteristics in these two places. First, this was the place where the Tower of Babel was. So during the time of Abraham, all the people would go to the land of Shinar, which was the wealthiest place with a lot of abundance, while at the same time with a lot of adultery, with the depravity. And it was the place where they built the Tower of Babel. They built the Tower of Babel with the purpose to connect it with the spiritual realm of darkness. So the Babel of Tower was not simply a tall tower. Instead, it was actually a very big city with a very broad base. And then the tower, and then the city was just, and the city was built horizontally up to the heaven. That was a kind of a symbol to stay connected with the spiritual realm of darkness. It was the most ancient city. It was the most ancient kingdom of spiritual darkness and the spiritual adultery and morality and depraved morality. So that's why in the book of Genesis as well as the book of Revelations, both of them mention the city of the prostitutes. So in that city, there were a lot of demon spirits, a lot of evil spirits, a lot of spiritual adultery, a lot of depraved morality. So that's why Isaiah asked him, where did they come from? And then he replied, it's from the distant lands, from Babylon. So Babylon is very crucial. Then we move on. Babylon was a place that a lot of people would go to this place to look for adultery, to look for wealth, and to commit a lot of adultery and immorality. And God, from this place, and God called Abraham from this place, out from this place. So first the father of Abraham. So the father of Abraham got three sons. So Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran died in that place. And Terah brought along Abraham to leave this place. And Nahor stayed behind in that place. So three sons were going out in three directions. And then God brought Abraham to land of Canaan. But Taran, that was actually another brother of Abraham, just died in the middle of way. He died in Taram, in the land of Taram, before he could reach the land of Canaan. And this is the place that we are talking about here in this passage, the distant land. And then God said to Abraham that your name will become the big name and you will become the father of all nations. And then God called Abraham to go into the west, into the land of Canaan. Actually, God didn't want his people to seek after the demon, the evil spirits, or the adultery, or maybe the superficial prosperity and wealth, or maybe the ego. God did not want us to go after this. And instead, God called Abraham out of that place. And this is also the same heart, the same will of God for Israel. So the story has come to here. When Assyria army defeated Judah, attacked Judah. And at that time, King Hezekiah was in reign. And then King Hezekiah held tight to the Lord. So he knew that he was critically ill. He held on to the Lord again, and God rescued him. And then during that time, he told God that, God, remember me. You look at me. You look at me. My trust in you is complete, and my actions are right before your eyes. So please, you come and save me. That I will worship you for the rest of my life in God's temples. I will worship you. You know, for the people who die cannot worship you. Only the living ones can worship you and exalt your name on high. So I will ask all my generations, all my children to come up and worship you. But when the crisis finished, after the crisis, what did King Hezekiah do? He got no more pressure. He was no longer under stress. And then the envoys of Babylon came from a distant land to him with the gifts, with the letters. So it was an ancient big city. So King Hezekiah defeated Assyria. Would Assyria came back to attack him again? Nobody knows. But now there was another ancient powerful city, which was Babylon, coming to visit him. So he was so glad. He was so glad to receive the envoys. What kind of attitude was it? So actually, Babylon would like to form an alliance with Judah. Then they would be able to defeat Assyria completely. So we could conquer Assyria together. So why? What's a blessing for me if I got Babylon to back me up? So King Hezekiah. So in order to draw the attention of Babylon, he even showed the armory, the storehouses, the house of all treasures, or the house of all precious things. The key word is the storehouse. The key word is house, because in this passage, the word house or the storehouse comes up a few times. So it means that he's just show all his silver, gold, spices, fine oil, even the entire armory, everything found among his treasures. He just show all these things to the envoys. Besides, he also showed his house, his palace, all the things within his palace to the envoys. Why did he show them all? That was to impress them. That was to impress them, so that the kingdom of Babylon would understand how important, how mighty, how wealthy the kingdom of Judah was. So, in fact, he was so happy to see all these envoys because why? Because he wanted to get the power from Babylon as well, so that he can secure, he can confirm that Assyria's armies could not return to attack him anymore. Before he's told God that, God, my heart was complete in you. I've been doing the right things in your eyes. But after the crisis, and then when the test came again, when the trials comes again, I do believe that it is a kind of test from God to him. So when the envoys of the Babylon came to King Hezekiah with the letters with all kinds of gifts, God didn't really send the prophets to stop the envoys. God didn't ask the prophets to stop King Hezekiah not to see them. God would not do that. When King Hezekiah set a vow to him, saying to God that, come on, remember me and look at me, Lord. So God looked at him indeed. But after the crisis, after rescuing him, his heart changed. His heart changed. He did not put his trust in the Lord anymore. Instead, he put his trust in Babylon. So that is called the temptation of Babylon. So he kept showing all the things to Babylon, to the envoys. Actually, we need to understand Babylon was the country to do all kind of evils and wickedness with evil spirits. So when the envoys came with the letters, with the gifts, all the things were contaminated with all the evil spirits, with all the evil forces. So this is from my perspective of healing and deliverance, from the perspective of spiritual warfare. So that's why the prophet Isaiah said in the second part of the passage, from verse 5 to 8, hear the word of the Lord Almighty. The time will surely come when everything in your palace and all that your fathers have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon. So nothing will be left. So in verse 6 again, the time will surely come when everything in your palace and all that your fathers have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left. And some of your descendants, your own flesh and blood, who will be born to you, will be taken away, and they will become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. We can tell that King Hezekiah, after the stress, after the crisis, he lost his trust in the Lord. He was being tempted by Babylon. So what was the temptation of Babylon about? Its power, its political power, its finance. What's more? Remember that King Hezekiah said to God that I will give thanks to you. I will praise you with all kinds of instruments in the temple of God for the rest of my days. That's what King Hezekiah said. So when the envoys of Babylon came to his palace, then King Hezekiah should be singing the praises to the Lord in front of them, right? He should be sharing his testimony about how God saved him with all these Babylon ambassadors, right? And God will save you and God will heal you. He should show his reverent fear to the Lord. He should spread the name of the Lord with reverence fear, right? That's what he promised. That's what he vowed about before. But by the time the envoy came, by the time the envoys came to him, he just looked at the powers of these envoys and looked at the strengths of these envoys. He didn't fix his eyes on the Lord. He didn't put his trust in the Lord. And instead, he tried to form the alliance with Babylon. He showed Babylon, he showed the ambassadors that, come on, look at all my wealth, all my armories. Could you see how powerful I am? So how about we form the alliance together? So he put all his trust in his wealth, in his horses, in his armory, not in God. He lost all his trust in the Lord. He showed them everything. So he showed them. So that's why King Isaiah said that since you show all the things to them already, since you show all your trust to them already, then in time to come, you will be defeated by Babylon. So it really reminds us that where do we put our trust in? Do we trust in our God? Do we only trust in our God when we are in stress, when we are in crisis? But after the stress and crisis, and then we simply forgot God? So over the past 20 years, we've been putting our trust in the Lord. And the more we put our trust in the Lord, the more God has been blessing our churches, has been blessing our church. I can see the congregation that we have, I mean the physical congregation, has been growing in terms of number. And even our online viewers, our online congregations are still a lot in terms of number. So God has been leading us, has been protecting us from all kinds of disasters. And God has been healing us, has been delivering us from all kinds of worries or crises. And God has been raising us up. So, brothers and sisters, yeah, it's true that we will face the difficulties and trials and testings, especially when we are strong, when we are powerful. Will we think that we are strong ourselves or we are powerful ourselves? We will think that, yes, we are very rich with everything. Or will we still stay humble before the Lord, acknowledging that all these things coming from the Lord? Or are we still putting our trust in the Lord? And this is the temptation of Babylon. Do we still put all our trust in the Lord? So when we got nothing, we trust our God. So for me, I always reminded myself that, well, in terms of my own strength, what could I do? What could I achieve? Well, when I was in Vancouver, what I could do was only 100 people within that church at that time. But today, what I have achieved is not because of my strength, and it is not even my request to the Lord. I was actually nothing. I didn't look at myself. Because I know that without the grace of God, I could achieve nothing. I only depended on God. I only follow God closely. That's what I do. And another temptation of Babylon was selfishness. Okay, so just think about it. The envoys came. And the envoys came. The envoys came with all kinds of evil forces attached. So that's why the mind of Hezekiah was blindfolded. So that's why we could not understand the verse 8. The word of the Lord you have spoken is good. There will be peace and security in my lifetime. Could you understand this word? The word of the Lord you have spoken is good. So just given that you were a father, and then the prophet said to you, telling you that after your time, it is talking about only 15 years. After 15 years, that all the things within your country would be carried away. All your wealth of your palace will be carried away. All your children will be carried away, and even they will become the eunuchs, and nothing will be left. But his response was that, wow, what you have spoken is good. Wow, yes, good, because within the coming 15 years, I will be saved. Well, what a relief. Well, what a relief within this coming 15 years. My life was still stable. My life was still safe. So, wow, who cares about my children after 15 years? Well, could you say that if you are a father? I believe that his mind was blindfolded by all those evil forces. So when the envoys came, they came with all the evil forces. You have to understand that it is not simply the cultural exchange, it is not simply the visitation from another country. Actually, it is a kind of evil influences. It is a kind of evil influences from the envoys. What should King Hezekiah do instead? What should we do instead? Of course, I do believe that all of us will hold on to the prophets. We should seek God. We should try to ask God to have the spirit of discernment, to see, to understand what's the motive behind all these envoys, right? So this is the first session of the book of Isaiah from chapter 1 to chapter 39. So this the end. This the end of the first session of the book of Isaiah. But after this chapter, we will move on with another books, and then after a while, we come back to the book of Isaiah again. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is the God that we can put our trust in. So let us come together to worship Him.